up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the most stunning and brave video game show on the planet, DEGREELESSNESS. We got dangerously close to being just a little bit serious last week, so I thought today would be fun to just kind of chill out, kick it, pack it, fire it up, play a little bit of the cat game, Stray. And here to help me do that and break down whether or not this is a sloppy kitty simulator or a gorgeous cyberpunk feline themed jam session is my very good friend and your new good buddy in the mix, Uptown Bobbi. Say hi, Bobby.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and talking about this awesome game.
So Stray is the latest release from Annapurna Interactive. You may be familiar with them from some of their previous games, most notable perhaps What Remains of Edith Finch, a game as brilliant as it is beautiful, as well as what in some small unfortunate circles may be known as the infamous 12 minutes, which in stark contrast to Edith Finch can best be described as disgusting.
Yuck.
So depending on which one of those you're more familiar with, your expectations coming to Stray may vary. All you really need to know though is that this is the game where you run around a super sick cyberpunk city filled with robots as an adorable kitty. It's the cat game. Now, since this is a dual review, we're going to do things a little bit differently, just sort of chop it up freeform about 4 major categories: visuals, gameplay, audio, and storytelling. And let's start with visuals. Bobby, your thoughts?
All right, so I think first I want to mention that I played this on PS5.
And how'd it look on PS5?
It looked spectacular, I thought, in terms of, well, I mean, in terms of my expectations of what I was going to get. You know, I had just upped to the new extra, and this was a free game, and I really wanted to play it.
But this was free on PS Plus?
This is free on PS Plus Extra, which is the second tier.
I mean, you know, we are very harsh here, but we're also fair. So
a day one release, this is at a $30 price
shout out
point.
Sony. All right, shout out Sony.
But this was a day one release for PS Extra, which is the middle tier. And
of what, PS Plus?
Of PS Plus.
Gotcha.
So I was very excited, and
for those of you who don't know, or that don't know, Bobby is way more the console gaming side of the operation, and I'm much more PC.
Big time.
That's why I'm asking for clarification and stuff like that,
so
in case some of you
I
may
will
not
also
know
say
as well.
that this game was good for Sony because they just recently, within the last maybe month, split out these different things and these different tiers.
Oh, really? Split them into tiers recently?
Yes,
Gotcha.
And Stray as a day one for this, I think probably was a mover for them because it definitely was what inspired me. So visuals I thought were great. I mean, let's start with the cat. Like
great.
The model, the rigging. I think it is absolute that I believe that they must have put a mocap balls on a cat.
100%. That's one of the first things
behave.
that struck me too. Like the moment that I fired it up, probably the first thing that I noticed was, holy shit, that motherfucker moves like an actual cat. I was very impressed.
I have 2 wonderful kittens. I have had cats pretty on and off for my entire life. I know how a cat moves. Like and this is how a cat moves. This is not something that I believe is possible to get so accurate, even if you are it's just so you have to have some kind of reference in rigging to make it look
or you have to be like
good.
a Disney auteur animator from like the 1940s.
Exactly, but to make it so you can interact with it, I mean, it's fantastic. You know, I think the cat moves great. I think the cat looks great. I don't think it sits in an uncanny valley. I think it really looks like a cat and looks really cute.
And that's an interesting thing to point out because they could have, if you think about it, they could have gone like super Pixar style and made it look super cartoony.
Sure.
Or they could have tried to make it super realistic. And I think they managed to find a nice spot in the middle where it's definitely more cartoon inspired, but it still looks
very
realistic.
yeah.
And it pulls it off without, as you mentioned, being some sort of hybrid uncanny valley monstrosity. It remains cute while still looking real. And I like that.
So I feel the whole time like I am playing as a normal ass cat.
Yeah.
Like
as opposed to some like Tom and Jerry abomination or something.
I feel like the game suggests that the cat does have advanced intelligence, and I think at some point they suggest that millions of years have passed since humanity has disappeared. So I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but I think it's important because like part of the way the cat looks, moves, etc. Anyway, so cat look. Let's start there. Visuals, cat look,
great. Agreed.
Amazing.
Top marks for just the cat animation, its design overall.
That
top marks for the
visuals
cat.
is important.
Yeah.
Because like that keeps me engaged. Little tail swishes around, you know, like
just how he bounds up the stairs and like digs at things.
Walks. There's all the leaping and everything. Really, it has the correct fluidity of the way that a cat would bounce from place to place and look before it leaps and then make this really calculated motion. You feel this cat paying attention to what's around it, even though it's not. I mean, just because it moves with such alertness and is so agile and feels great to control.
It's not, and it's not just the player character. It's a centerpiece of the game. I would say, correct me if you disagree or whichever, but I would say the 2 stars of this game are the city and the cat.
Yeah, well, I mean, they try, they have B12 talking and stuff.
That's a generic, dude, my little ghost personal floating robot thing in Destiny 2 looks almost indistinguishable from that.
Yeah, no.
I mean, is the design competent? It's competent.
Yeah, well, I mean,
but
just
does
that thing is just
stand out? I don't really think
no,
so.
No.
It's no Wall-E.
No, not at all. But I mean, the thing's talking to you the whole time.
Sure, but I'm just saying in terms of like the main centerpieces of the game, it's the city and it's the cat.
Oh yeah.
So if you don't pull off the cat, even though it's gonna be the player character, if you don't pull it off like as a believable, feline really interacting with these spaces, you're gonna have a bad time. And they absolutely pulled it off. So I agree. That's very important that they did, and they absolutely fucking nailed it. Totally nailed it.
There are 2 other things I wanted to talk about the visuals specifically. I mean,
I'd like to discuss the art direction of the city and stuff.
And that's specifically what I want to talk about. I feel like I am really into Kowloon Walled City, and I feel like this borrowed from that significantly. The idea of a city built on top of itself, like a slum that's rising vertically. I mean, that's like Blade Runner type shit.
Or obviously. Some sort of old hive spire like in 40K or something.
I'm not familiar with. But
well, I mean, it's just ancient beyond ancient, building vertically, upon the ruins of what came before.
Building like houses on houses on houses where you have to like go up into something that isn't a building that actually has like floors. It's just like shit built on top of itself that becomes this like living, the city sort becomes an organism itself. Yeah, they're just stacking because in this world, they're all trapped inside this dome. So they have to, they're not really building anything because the robots are just doing. I mean, I think it's worth quickly mentioning that like in this world, they establish right away that humans have been gone for millions of years, and it's just robots living in this closed-off city where there is no sunlight.
Weird sort of half-forgotten pantomime.
They're essentially continuing to do what they were instructed to do millions of years ago, like clean and bartend. But they're not really doing anything. Like they're just kind of doing the same job over and over.
Existing in this weird sort of stasis.
They're wishing that they could get out and see what's out, but they're also like, this is what we were programmed
bound by their nature.
Yeah, we can't get out. And there's a resistance group of robots that's trying to get out, but they just can't like figure out how to do it or some shit. I mean, it's like, it's really basic, but like it's cool. So I think the city, yes, I think the way it's vertically done is super cool. Everything, it's like a cyberpunk slum, which is awesome. Neon lights everywhere. Really cool lighting effects. Like graphically, is it actually that impressive? What it does, it's awesome. Its style is awesome.
I agree. I suspect that the engine, just based on how my computer performs and like watching my graphics card stats while playing it, the engine is not super heavyweight, but in a way it almost kind of feels like the Dishonored engine, where it's doing much more with lighting and textures than you're actually perceiving.
Right.
But overall, it works. Yeah, the lighting and everything. I would say overall, the mood that it casts is perfect because it's
a lot of lighting.
When you say cyberpunk, everybody probably thinks of the same things, right? Like smog, like raining, dismal buildings and tenements and shit, flickering neon signs, maybe, Asian language characters, all over the fucking place, kanji or Mandarin, whatever the fuck that is. Like that, everybody probably thinks of the same thing. But there's a difference between just being able to conjure that kind of idea and really pulling it off. And games like The Ascent fucking nailed that shit. I would say Cyberpunk 2077 nailed that shit, and this game also nails it. But more importantly, this game manages to nail it without looking like either of the other 2 games that I mentioned. And there's, even in addition to those, there's been quite a bit of cyberpunk sort of atmosphered games recently. So the fact that this game, especially with the robot design too, that really helps it out. The fact that this game does nail its intended aesthetic and also clearly creates its own lane for that aesthetic. I think that's very important, and shout out to the artist.
I mean, I think it's spectacular. I think that this is like as good as Disney or Pixar could do a cyberpunk environment in terms of the actual, like, the way that it's set up and how real it feels.
That's
it feels like a real
it really
place.
It feels lived in.
It feels lived in. It feels like it's millions of years old. It feels lived in. It feels like it's grimy, but not too terrible. It feels like these motherfuckers live here.
And it really takes a lot of hand-done, like, touches to... We're laughing because we're looking at a scene for the game where the cat has a bag on its head. And it's just as adorable as that would be if I was watching a cat get a bag, get his head stuck in a bag in real life.
And also, it's worth noting that when you put your head in the bag, that it inverts your controls.
Yeah, which is absolutely phenomenal.
As if you're confused.
All these kind of little touches that you really need this human element to do it. And I mean, I'm sure everybody's seen it. Like, whenever you're playing a game, don't you all go up to the fucking graffiti and see the graffiti and see how, like, realistic it looks? See how many times that specific graffiti texture is repeated all around. Half-Life 2 is very bad at this. And like, you know what I'm talking about? Like, a lot of games get really lazy with that shit. It's a great example.
You do not see stuff.
You don't see stuff repeating, and the graffiti that is there looks very real and appropriate for the world.
And that's because the scope, and it
has a very organic, lived-in feel.
This is something we are going to get back to, but I think this is an important point to begin discussing. That part of the reason that is possible is because this game is short. I finished this game.
That's true. Actually, let's use this opportunity to transition right into gameplay.
I finished
right
this.
Now.
I mean, I think there's got to be some spoiler alerts to this in some ways because I don't know. How
Usually,
much
whenever I do a review, it's like it should be inferred that there's going to be spoilers. So
I mean,
before we go forward,
this is not really the place. This is not really the place to go, as far as I'm concerned. If you're trying to decide if you want to buy the game, I think this is a place to go to discuss the game once you've played it.
Yeah,
because I'd rather we talk about this frankly, rather like play this fucking game. If that's why you're listening to this, play this fucking game.
Yeah, oh yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, is this game worth $30? Like, honestly, this game's worth experiencing. Play this fucking game; it's awesome. If you have a PS5, fork over the fucking dough. If you have a PC, I don't know.
I don't know how much it is on PC.
Look, so part of what makes this game work, I beat it in 4 hours and 40 minutes. I would say the average person probably can complete this in about 6 to 8 hours max. So.
Oh, dude, this game's $30 on PC.
Yeah, it's $30 everywhere.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So again, I will add my agreement to Bobby's 100%.
This is
absolutely worth playing. Even if you go on Steam, all reviews overwhelmingly
honestly,
positive.
It's so fun. Like, you have to realize that, like, what I am saying is I played this for free. I do think it's like I think it's a gaming experience. I mean, I don't want to get into like the overall, but I think it's important to note here that because they didn't repeat shit, because they kept this game so lean. They didn't go, we need to make a 20-hour masterpiece. They said we need to tell this little story, and this story that actually is kind of sweet and like it's cute. It has some moments that many people could find moving. You get to experience these robot characters that are really interesting and fun, but as only as little vignettes. Like, you don't spend enough time with any of them for you to realize that it's like they have 3 or 4 lines. They're not really anything.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't want to spend that much time with them either.
No, and it's great, and they move you right along to the next one.
Along. The pacing, I think, is kind of what we're getting at.
That's like a Pixar movie where, like, you don't just sit there and talk to the dude forever. You get moved along to the next character. Moved along this story. This game is very linear. There is a little bit of open world stuff. It's sort of like you can go visit people in maybe in different orders a little bit. For the most part, it appears though it open worldy, but it's actually linear in how you're being guided. Which is great.
Absolutely.
Like, there was never a point where I was like, what do I do next? Really, maybe once or twice. But for the most part, it's very clear.
And for especially a game like this, that's what I want. I don't want to be bumbling. Like, again, this is in context of this game, where you have a limited number of actions you can perform. You're a cat, so the ways you can interact with your environment are extremely limited. In that context, you do not want to spend that much time around here. Like, it's great, it's very immersive, but at the same time, if they gave you too much time, if they gave you free reign and too much time to just bumble around, the limitations inherent in a game where you play as a cat would become very, very clear very quickly.
I didn't know that you could change the channel on the remote. That's so funny.
Oh, I didn't know that either. That's great.
Well,
great,
I mean, to tie this back to visuals.
Well, I was trying to move into gameplay. But.
Okay. I mean, I think it's just to cap it, like, the visuals are great, and you don't end up getting repetitive, like, oh, I saw this graffiti, I saw this neon sign. Everything feels unique because they were able to, because it's so tight that they were able to make everything very deliberate. Almost like something made out of pixel art, where everything is placed so deliberately that it's like, oh, here's our little world. Like, this is their little diorama of the world. Yeah. And somebody could be like...
Diorama is a great word to describe how this feels,
too. You could get to know this little tiny mini robot city and the characters that are in it, and nothing feels copy-pasted. It's just enough
And that's
robots.
why it doesn't feel that way, is because they were content, and also, shout out to indie devs, they were allowed to keep it that small.
They kept it small, and so because of that, they were able
to fill it out with tons of very human, organic touches, and it totally works.
It's very unique. And so, is this like Demon Souls level of like visual wow? Well, no, but is it going? I mean, there are definitely a lot of times that I'm like, oh my god, this is just so cool looking with the colors and like the fog and the cat running around.
You will definitely catch yourself sitting like on a corner of a roof or something and just sort of marveling at the landscape that they paint around you. It's
great.
Really, really well done.
To say nothing of the fact that I think also the perspective is maybe something to note in terms of visually, like the fact that you're in the cat's perspective. So a lot of times you're seeing things from really far down low.
Yeah, and it's great how the camera pulls down to like give you a sort of behind the cat's shoulders. You wouldn't usually see something
in like a realistic world where you're down low unless you played as a kid or a baby, and who the fuck wants that?
Yeah, absolutely nobody. I would much rather play as a cat than a baby or a kid.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But that is a very interesting point, and I've thought about that while I was playing it.
Yeah, I don't want to be a baby toddling on the edge of a roof like, oops, I fell off. I mean, I don't want that for a cat either, but like cat can land.
Yeah, but
that's not going to do so well. Like, that's gross.
So
that
again,
would explode like a watermelon in a Gallagher routine.
Oh God. Dude, I hate fucking Gallagher. People who how did that guy ever become?
Nobody, if you know
how did that guy ever become a thing?
If you don't know about Gallagher was a comedian in the early 90s, late 80s who at the end of his act would pull out watermelons and just smash them with sledgehammers, and people were laughing their asses off, and that was the most hilarious thing they'd ever seen. The front row would wear ponchos.
Yeah, you'd have to wear ponchos in the front row.
I loved it. I was 4 or 5. I thought it was hilarious.
Wait, did you go to one?
Fuck no, but it would be on TV.
I was sure you were about to say fuck yes.
No, oh my god, no. It was on TV. I always wanted to, but they'd have it on VH1 and shit. Anyway,
was his comedy good?
I honestly
can't
have
imagine
no
that it was.
I have no idea.
If he had to pull out a watermelon and smash it all over the front row of the audience, his comedy could not possibly
exactly. And it's right.
Anyway, but we digress. Gallagher aside. So we've sort of been going in and out talking about also gameplay here. I'll start just... There's really not that much to tell, honestly. You get this little robot buddy that lives in your backpack that basically allows the game an excuse to say why a cat can actually interact with pretty much anything. And it works fine. It's nothing crazy, but it's pretty seamless and it's functional. So, I mean, I don't really begrudge it. And plus, like you said earlier, while the design of the robot itself is not going to win any awards, it's cute, it fits with the world, it's fine. But other than that, you're not going to be really engaging in combat. You're going to be doing...
Well, we are. I think first, before we get to all that, I will be distracted until we engage with the elephant in the room.
Which is
the big divisive issue about this, the contextual jumping. You can jump around as the cat only...
Oh, that's I had not even thought about that.
Just like with Uncharted, only where you can press an X to leap. I personally think this is cool because it allows you to have these Uncharted-like sequences where the cat is meant to go, and it's not like you have to figure it out like Uncharted, it's really obvious, but the cat goes ground to the AC to the rooftop, and then you look and you see the little X and you jump up. There, I have spoken to gamers personally, it's things I've read online. This is a divisive issue. I don't think that this is that people are saying, oh, why can't you just free climb, which would have been a much more, to me, development heavy, could have created fucked up experience. Instead, they have this curated, scripted experience that I think is fun and cool, and it doesn't bother me because it allows you can jump on the fucking table and then walk around on the table. Like, I don't need to personally, skillfully leap, which also would look silly. They can make it look dope.
You know, by pointing that out, I hadn't even considered that at all. I hadn't even noticed that.
That's the elephant in the room, baby.
We
got to talk about that
just
first.
now, and now that you've described it,
I heard someone else say to me that it ruined the game for them and they couldn't play it because of that.
No, that person is a moron.
I think so.
The entire reason that the game works is because what you can interact with and how you interact with it is limited and scripted like that.
So what do you say to the people who say it should have had full 3D control and you should be able to leap on stuff?
The overall experience of the game would not be anywhere nearly as tight and perfectly tuned as it is, because they would have had to account for a situation where you could just bound and run all the fuck over everything.
That's right.
Now, people, when they, in this modern age, when we expect like these sprawling multi-$100 million magnum opuses from companies like fucking BioWare and, Rockstar or something, you might look at that and think it seems needlessly limiting. And if it were a game being made by a studio with that kind of budget, sure, it would be. But in a game like this, which is effectively a fucking indie, you are not going to be able to get a tightly tuned, refined, structured adventure like this if they tried to fit in the ability to let you basically free roam. Right? Like, that would have cost them so much.
But I also
in dev time. The game,
I still think it's a clean solution though. Like, I don't feel like it's just a cost cutting measure. I think it works to the game's advantage.
It does. Well, it does. It was seamless enough so that I didn't even notice that or think about it until you mentioned it just now.
Yeah. Think about it, because dude, think about how it would look if the cat just had to jump. It would leap up and then be like hovering in the air over the table before the land animation came in. It would look silly.
That's incredible.
Are we going to have footage playing while we talk here?
I'm going to have footage edited into the video.
Like, so you'd be able to see how every jump looks clean and it looks like a cat jumping.
This literally,
because of this.
This literally connects every single facet of the fucking game.
I agree.
I hadn't even thought about it until you said it.
I agree.
But that's why it fucking works. If there's one word I could use to describe the experience of this game, it would be tight. It's tight. It is perfectly tuned and designed so that everything works just so, and it's very clear. And if you allow the game to just guide you and inform you on how you should play it, you, like me, will probably never notice those limitations. Right. Because if you are content to follow the game's sort of unseen hand guiding you through it, you will never know. And it speaks to the competence of the developers and the people who programmed it, that if you're doing it right and allowing the game to guide you, you will never get into a situation where you want to do something that you can't. And that is why it's perfect, and that's why it's okay. You will never be in a situation where you're like, shit, I want to do this, or I want to get up here, I want to try to do something, but I can't. No, the game is designed well enough and it's tight enough so that you'll never encounter a situation where you can't do something that you feel you need to. And at least, I mean, maybe I'm being too broad by saying anybody, but definitely in my fucking experience, and it's which is in service of my point that I didn't even notice that until you said something.
It's a big deal, and honestly, I think it's ridiculous because these are people who are essentially saying, "Oh, I want the opportunity to miss a jump." Think about how it is in Elden Ring when you're trying to jump on stuff and you're just leaping against a wall.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Do you want to see this cat leaping against a wall over and over again? You will not see that once in this game ever.
The point of this game is to tell a fun adventure story about a cat. This point of this game is not to test your reflexes and your
minimal skill required.
Gamer abilities.
Minimal skill required for this game. Honestly, it's not about get good. It's about telling a story. This is like playing through a Disney Pixar movie. But
that's exactly what it's like.
It's darker. It's like if Disney Pixar movie meets a Studio Ghibli style
puzzle game,
puzzly. I mean, it's not even really puzzles as much as just this kind of darker story.
I would say the gameplay is that of a puzzler. If you think about a point and click puzzle adventure game or something.
It's closer. Sure, there's fetchy type quest.
Yeah, but the point is that it doesn't.
It's sort of like an old
challenge
adventure
your
game.
skill at playing
No, it's not
games.
it
challenges your skill to put 2 and 2 together and fucking solve for puzzles.
There is an action segment, but it's pretty easy, which is sort of like combat.
But those are few and far between. They do not overall define the gameplay.
No, and there's a little bit of stealth, but it's really they don't define the gameplay.
No, it's mostly move to the place where the prompts are and do the fucking prompts and solve the puzzles. The same way like a point-and-click adventure game, it's not testing how quickly your reactions can click on an area of the screen to walk to. No, it's testing how you can follow directions and put 2 and 2 together to solve puzzles and move forward in the story or the narrative. And that's the point of this game. So now that we've come around full circle, I don't think that, the gameplay is, I don't want to say irrelevant, but in terms of skill,
it's good. No, but the gameplay is good. It's fun. There's a lot of places to jump. Also, people are like, oh, you can't press X to jump anywhere. There's a million places to jump around.
Yeah, but you don't need to. That's the point. People are so used to being able to be able to do certain things that they don't stop to consider if they even need to be able to do those things, or if they should even be able to do those things. And we're so used to these big budget games that like, oh, they're huge fucking open world, go wherever you want, steal this fucking ridiculous vehicle, do all this dumb shit, half of which you won't even have any need to do throughout your entire playthrough of a game like that. And we think that kind of shit should be applied to everything. It absolutely is unnecessary, and this game makes an amazing case for why it is not fucking necessary.
Right. So the gameplay is good. It's very simple. There are very, very, very few mechanics to it whatsoever, and they're all very straightforward. So like there are a couple little puzzly bits, but yeah, I'd say it's close to an adventure game. It's
much closer to an adventure game.
That is all done in the service of telling this little vignette
it's all
story
in the service of this cute story
about a cat that's trying to get back to its homies or whatever, or
It's only as complicated as it needs to be. And spoiler alert, it never needs to be very complicated.
No, and it never gets crazy. Like you don't end up with some crazy mechanics.
And I feel like ultimately that's kind of gonna boil down to a matter of preference. Like if you're playing this game because you're hoping for some crazy action platformer game, that's not what this game is.
Well, I'm coming to someone. I literally played this right after I fucking finished the Cuphead Delicious Last Course DLC.
This would definitely be a cool down from that.
So, and it was. And so I am a person who loves and thrives on games like that.
Yeah.
Elden Ring, FromSoft, things that are meant to destroy you. And I also like a game that's challenging and can tell a story. I mean, something like, I don't know, like fucking Shadow of the Colossus or something that's a little bit more tricky, but still very much narrative-based.
Well, the difference there is I would describe Shadow of the Colossus as an action game where I would not describe this game as an action game.
For sure. But I want to just reiterate again the point that this game is intentionally brief, which allows it to achieve a greatness.
Which allows it to be as tight as it is.
Like a horror movie. That once the general conceit of it is over, it's not scary anymore. So the best horror movies
It Follows is a good example of that.
Yeah, they're often shorter movies because if you take something long, unless you're fucking Ari Aster, you're gonna end up running out of steam of your idea at some point. And the best slasher movies from the 80s are the ones that are brief and tight. And just like that, this idea can't overstay its welcome.
Yes, that's.
I am a cat.
I could not have said it better myself. Ultimately, that is the point, is that the developers are aware that this idea cannot overstay its welcome. Otherwise, it will become stale and the cracks will show through very quickly.
Because there ain't a lot going on here. You're a cat.
Yeah.
But that's what's awesome, because you are just a fucking cat. But they know that
there's not 25 hours of being a cat.
No, unless they turn this into like a cat simulator where you're now like getting cat food.
Yeah, I don't want the sloppy cat
box,
sim, dude. No, I want the adventure game where the protagonist just so happens to be an adorable little kitty. That's what I want, and that's what this game gives
you. That is what this delivers in spades. So the gameplay is really straightforward and fun and accessible. I think it is challenging. I do think it is challenging. I do think that I would not call this casual enough to give a child. I think that the combat
it requires
and
too much actual critical thinking
difficult,
to be able
and
to do that.
also the problem solving in the puzzle sections. I'd say it is really more like a LucasArts difficulty.
This is a game that is good to play with a partner. And like a
Sure, yeah.
You know, like
you
maybe
and another cat
maybe your
lover.
partner, your girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever. Maybe they're not super into video games.
I play this
like,
with my cats sitting right next to me, and I was like, "Oh my god, look at you!"
Yeah, but it's a fun, casual story to play through with people, and it's in
Or cats.
In that, I mean to say that it's very accessible, and I think.
It is.
I think
and
that's
there's the robots and their dialogue. You know, even their dialogue, they show little emoji on their faces, like when something good happens.
It's
it shows
adorable.
A heart.
This game,
there's not a lot going on,
which is fine.
so you can keep up.
I
Like
think
a
the
Ghibli
best thing
film.
that I could say about it is that this game is very aware of itself.
Oh, yeah.
In a way that few games in this day and age are.
Yeah.
And it works to the game's benefit all the way through perpetually.
These dudes were brave enough. These dudes and dudettes, whatever, like the crew who made this game was brave enough to know that they needed to keep this down to like under 6 hours and keep it short, but that they had, in order to get this quality, $29.99 might be the right price tag to get this level of quality. There's a lot of quality here, but I think there's a really great place for this. I don't need, if this had like crafting and shit, I never would have played it.
Oh my god, yeah.
But I'm so happy I got to experience this. I mean, I got to do it for free, but like it's not free because I'm playing for the PlayStation Extra, so I still fucking paid for it. And I upgraded my account just for this. But I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, that was like, an $8 extra at the time, but still.
Is a great showcase of why there is an important distinction between what we would call an indie and a big budget AAA studio
this
game.
sits in the middle.
This shows you exactly why there should be and must always be indies, because you will never, would never, and could never get a game like this from a big budget AAA company.
No, that's totally
They would try
true.
to fuck it to death with too long of a campaign, extraneous systems like you mentioned, like crafting, a bunch of dumb nonsense, a drawn out fucking narrative, to say nothing of godforsaken microtransactions or whatever the fuck else.
Right.
No. This is the perfect example of why some games need to be indies. Right fucking here.
Yep. And that's what Annapurna clearly deals in. Because, I mean, What Remains of Edith Finch
true.
is kind of similar.
They know
in
their
that
business.
They
know their business. I think
I completed What Remains of Edith Finch in one sitting. In an afternoon,
Yeah. And same with this game.
And I thought it was fucking phenomenal.
I think the actual developer is Blue 12 Studio, but of course the publisher is Annapurna.
Yeah,
Annapurna.
Blue 12 Studio did a great job.
Annapurna definitely know their
Clearly
fucking
are
business.
investing.
I will say that.
They're clearly investing in games like this. That's great that there's someone brave enough to do this, and the developers knew, because it is brave in this environment to be fuck, people may reject us at this $30 price point or with the PlayStation Plus Extra, and this may fail because it's short, and people may not people may just focus on the length of the game and how long it is, and they may obsess over that rather than thinking about was this worth the experience of like, I am a cat in this really fun, unique, like Disney Pixar, like Ghibli style adventure. And I think it's worth it.
Absolutely.
This game's existence is amazing.
There's really almost nothing else that's like this. There's
no.
almost nothing else that even looks like
No,
it.
there's not. Where you, and also just like the conceit of the cat as the protagonist, where like you also like you're a cat, but you like, so you don't really care what's going on. You're following along because the guy's like, let's go here, but you're a cat. So you don't really like care, which is also kind of fun. I mean, I don't know. I think this game is brilliant. So the gameplay. I mean, we're still talking about gameplay.
I think we're pretty much wrapping up at this point.
What, with the whole thing?
Yeah. So
Okay,
I wanted to just basically then get to you. 1 through 10, 10 being the best. What's Bobby gonna give us? What's the Bobby score?
9.
Agreed.
I'd give it a 9.
Agreed.
I'd say that one.
Agreed.
I mean, I would say to justify the 1 point reduction, I would say that there are. I would say, so for example, things like the flashlight sequence, the fact that it just kind of gets tossed out the window, is rough. And I will say that I mean, this is major spoilers. I won't do it, but spoilers. Countdown from 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Like the ending, I was not. I was disappointed that when can I tell you?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
When I finished the game, I don't know if I got the wrong ending, but it just showed the cat leaving the underground and did not show the cat reuniting with its buddies from the beginning and its family. And I thought, if it's possible that I didn't get a true ending, and in the true ending you could see your cat friends, and if so, that's cool. But if not, that's very disappointing, because I was like, what the fuck? The whole point is that you lost your family, and now great, I'm outside, but I'm alone. So I don't know. Okay, let's find out here. Stray has one ending and it can't be influenced. So I think that is a real oversight and is really disappointing.
I find that to be appalling.
It's weird
that you do not reunite with your buddies.
It's weird because you start out, and in order to start the game, you have to cuddle with each member of your family, and then you lose them and they watch you fall. But the ending, you escape out into the world.
I mean, B12 dies at the end, so I mean, like, that's kind of...
B12 sacrifices his or herself, themselves at the end, in order to open the dome and let light into the city and free the robots from their millions of years of this endless cycle. And the cat has used B12 to escape to the surface.
Essentially, yeah.
The cat has used
B12
it
for his own ends.
The cat followed B12. The cat did not give a shit about saving those robots at all. The cat just wanted to get the fuck out.
Which is great,
because
is amazing.
That's what a cat would do.
Because the cat would not
The cat had no interest in this whatsoever. It was totally neutral.
More to the developer's credit, because I mean, I would have liked to see his little cat buddies at the end, but other than that, like, the cat gets out. That's the end.
I mean,
that was the whole story.
But the cat would want to reunite with its family, and they establish at the beginning that there's a connection because you must cuddle with each member of your family before the story can start.
Yeah.
So it's not just like a scrappy pack that you don't know. They establish that you have a connection
some sort of
here.
Association or
so
connection
why
there.
They could have easily just shown the 4 cats sitting out there when you walked out.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't care, like, oh my God, they happened to be there. I would have been like, oh, they heard a huge rumbling and came running, or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I would have liked to have seen the other cats, and I was really disappointed. So I would say that alone, I would knock a point off for.
I gotta say, this is usually the scoring that I give. A 10 is a game that I would change nothing about. And even the ending, perhaps silly as is, and also, I mean, we could get, I mean, this video is already long enough, so we're not going to, but like, we could get into a few nitpicks about how exactly the responsive the controls are at certain times, and how maybe sometimes some button prompts are maybe a little bit too obtuse and things like that. But overall, it's not enough to impact your real enjoyment of the game, which is why here at DEGREELESSNESS, we give a unanimous 9. Highly recommended. Hope y'all enjoyed this one. We ran a little long, but maybe I'll trim it down. I don't know. But hopefully you enjoyed it. Stray, it's a great fucking game. Thank you very much to Uptown Bobbi.
Thank you.
For chopping it up with all of us. And we'll catch you next week.
Woke up, smoke up, blunt, then I pass out. Pass out. Woke up, what up, smoke up, blunt, then I'm back down. Back down. What? Woke up, smoke up, blunt, then I pass out. Pass out.